One summer moment can change a child's life. Through Toys for Tots Give and Go initiative, your support provides books, games, toys, and outdoor adventures that spark curiosity, creativity, and a love of nature. Whether it's fishing, learning a new sport, reading under a tree, or playing with friends, these moments build confidence and lifelong memories. For too many children, those moments never come. You can help change that this summer. Visit toysfortots.org. Toys for Tots, delivering hope beyond the holidays.
In the squadron, they called him Bullets, but we call him Greg Kelly. Greg Kelly is on the air
on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
All right, so I'm looking at President Trump in Medora, North Dakota. What the hell is going on up there? Big Teddy Roosevelt Library. I must have known this at one point, but I totally forgot, as there's a big Teddy Roosevelt connection to North Dakota. Now, I grew up on Long Island, Sagamore Hill and Oyster Bay. That was his basically like his Bedminster, his Mar-a-Lago. Beautiful, big, gigantic, ginormous mansion on a hill. Been inside it at Teddy Roosevelt. I don't know. I remember somebody told me he was just very good at PR, right? He was a bit, he was a bit of a myth maker. I don't know if that's true, but he did a lot of things with books and excusez-moi, can I have a little bit of a visitor in my, alrighty. Oh gosh, there's a little doggy in the studio. Sorry about that. Ooh, good dog. I think. Did I tell you my brother has a Belgian Malinois and a Doberman Pinscher? Doberman, a big Doberman. And I love dogs, but these dogs do not like me. And I don't know, oh boy, I've seen them attack the trainer. You know, the trainer wears those hockey protectors, those things on the legs to protect from hockey pucks. And they maul those things. Very, very disconcerting to me. All right, he arrived in 1883 to hunt bison in the Badlands, and during that trip he fell in love with the rugged country and bought an interest in the Maltese Cross Ranch. That's right outside of Medora, where President Trump is right now. In 1884, tragedy struck. Both his wife Alice and his mother died on the same day in New York. I didn't know they died on the same day. Grief-stricken, Roosevelt returned to the Dakota Territory, where he immersed himself in ranching and built the Elkhorn Ranch, which became his favorite home in the West. Of all the homes in the West, that was his favorite. In North Dakota, he worked as a cattle rancher, rode with cowboys, hunted, endured brutal winters, and learned firsthand about the challenges of frontier life. He wasn't just visiting. He was an active ranch owner and businessman. How did this guy find the time for all this stuff? And somebody told me he read a book a day. He's going on these grand hunting expeditions, and I don't know how he did it. Must have had a lot of energy or great PR. I've also been curious about his sons. He had a lot of sons, including Kermit, and some of them were war heroes, genuine war heroes. And that's to be admired. Even all these years later, I saw J.D. Vance today at Oceana Naval Air Station, Oceana, I used to call it. I heard somebody say Oceana. Damn it, I hated that. When I hear somebody mispronounce something, and I notice that they mispronounce something, the next time I say it, I mispronounce it. This happened to me in college. There was a guy on the radio who said Prague, Czechoslovakia. We called it Czechoslovakia back then. And I'm like, you idiot, it's Prague. I got it backwards just then. It is Prague. And the guy said Prague. And for the rest of my life, I struggle with that. Prague. Fortunately, it doesn't come up very often. It's Prague in the Czech Republic, not Prague. And after that guy, it became a whole thing. Like, oh my gosh, he said it wrong. It's like Ralph Cramden and the hiccups, or as he called it, the hiccups. The hiccups. Remember this, I want to come back to it. I think it's a fascinating idea that you have to call out stupid, whether it's big stupid or small stupid. President Trump calls out both. Democrats too often just go along with it, and now they have to go along with this DSA heinousness. It's just heinous. All right, time out for that. Pete Buttigieg. We all have to come together and say the appropriate thing about Pete Buttigieg because he was inconvenienced. All right, so what the hell happened to Pete Buttigieg? Here he is on the Good Morning America show. Carlos, you ready with the Pete Buttigieg? He had a situation. Somebody called the SWAT team on him. They called the SWAT team on his house, and they showed up, and it was just awful. I don't think this should ever be done by anybody, but he kind of brings it on himself. All right. Here's the former transportation secretary and current front runner for the Democrat nomination, Pete Buttigieg.
I was here in my study and noticed that there was a police officer and a CPS worker at the door. Showed him in, asked what was going on, and they started talking about this allegation. They couldn't tell me what the allegation was, and then they told me that I couldn't be around my children unsupervised until my children were interviewed. During that questioning, no one in the family could be present, and the next 24 hours are some of the darkest times of my life. I don't know how to describe it.
How are your children doing?
You know, they're 4 years old, and as a family, we're just trying to put this behind us. I don't know how much of this they're going to remember. I know I will. It's one of the most awful moments of my life, and something I wouldn't wish on anybody. Although I'll also say that the response since we made the decision to speak out about this has been really extraordinary. Hearing from people across the country, not just people I know and have worked with and are political allies, but actually people from the other side, people in some cases that I campaigned against, reaching out or speaking out in solidarity. We have got to be able to agree as a country on at least this fundamental principle, that you do not go after people's families, that whatever you think of somebody's politics, however you want to argue or fight about political issues, you leave somebody's children alone.
Well, I agree with that. And also, I mean, let's say Pete Buttigieg was single. Let's say he was a bachelor, right? I don't think it's right to swat bachelors or single people either. And they're vulnerable to these kinds of false alarms as well. But he said there that we made the decision to speak out about this. I think they made the decision to exploit it, right? To exploit it. You see, big bad MAGA did this. We're important enough to receive threats. It's a humble brag. I wouldn't be surprised if President Trump called. And look, it's a traumatizing thing. The cops come and all that stuff. But look, I remember, it wasn't that long ago, and I don't like it, but I used to show my pictures of my kids on video and sometimes on social media. And people love it. People absolutely love it. Oh, they're adorable. They're amazing. And then I'd get a group of people. How dare you jeopardize your children like that? I know the world is full of good people and bad people, and there's lightness and darkness. But I am going to operate under the assumption, right? There's certain assumptions. You see, some people put their kids on social media and they put these little, they put stars over their face, right? So you can't see their face. And the thinking is, what they're doing is they're being preemptively cautious about child abductors, right? The fear that someone's going to come and snatch your kid and traffic them and all those things. So when I see the star, my mind is taken to a horrible, dark place right off the bat. This started in the aftermath, with the advent of social media, and also in the aftermath of JonBenét Ramsey. JonBenét Ramsey, remember that little kid out there in Colorado who was, I guess, abducted, and she was so sexy. I mean, she was a sexy 6-year-old kid. I even hate saying that, for crying out loud. They dressed her up like a woman. And some guy, fell in love with her and then stalked the beauty contest all over the place. They were putting JonBenét Ramsey in beauty contests, sexualizing her, and it drove certain, weirdos who were into this stuff totally nuts, and they stalked. Now, I don't do anything like that. These are regular kids looking like regular kids. there's almost too much clamoring about would-be predators out there. And, oh, by the way, I have guns. All right? If anybody, right? All right? So, I can handle that. And we have police, and we have protections. Now, having said all that, I'm not a public office holder, right? I'm not, I make content, and, we shoot the breeze. Pete Buttigieg here was Secretary of the Transportation. That's like in line for the presidency. If the president and the vice president and the Secretary of State and then the Speaker of the House and the Senate pro temp, they start going through the cabinet people. I mean, you're actually in line to be president. He's like 8th in line, 9th in line, something like that. And he was putting out his children on social media. And oh, by the way, there's a big catch, right? There's a big thing here that's different. And it's part of why I think he's exploiting this moment and maybe even exploiting his kids. Why or how? We are a same-sex couple, and look at our beautiful children. Just daring people to have an issue with it. Just daring people like me or somebody else or their political opposition to say, something, I don't think that's right. I don't think it's right that two men have a child. Now, there are a lot of things that aren't right, and there are things that they're in the Bible. You can look it up in the Bible. I lived with a woman. That wasn't right. You're not supposed to do that. And if you do that, which I did, and I knew people, I just didn't make a big deal out of it. But this guy puts it in your face. And given that he is presidential timber, I don't think that was a smart thing to do. And now he complains that, there are wackos out there. Something else about Pete Buttigieg. He's on the shot. You know what I can't stand? When skinny people try to get skinnier by taking the shot. I can look at his face. He used to have a big round head like Alfred E. Newman, and now he's angular and cut. He didn't do that with diet and exercise. He did it with the shot. Now, look, I was 228 pounds. I had to lose the weight for my heart. That's why I went on the shot. And granted, I wouldn't mind being a little bit more angular. I guess, look, politicians and vanity, it bothers me. It's a signal that they're in it for all the wrong reasons, And the other thing that bothers me about this guy, and I don't care, is that he exploited his orientation to take him to the highest places of power in America. There isn't a way in hell this guy could have won the Iowa primary if he were heterosexual. What? You're the mayor of South Bend, Indiana? What about the poor guy from Miramar, Florida? The mayor of Miramar, Florida ran for president. Did you know that in 2020? Yeah, what a joke. What chance does he have? Well, what chance does the mayor of South Bend have? What was the difference? The schmuck mayor of Miramar was married to a woman. He was a guy and had 2 kids, right? How boring. Nuclear family, heterosexual, standard nuclear family. But Pete Buttigieg was GAY, and they just couldn't get enough of it. And I counted, there are thousands upon thousands of stories. Pete Buttigieg, when he came out of the closet, why he came out of the closet, how he felt when he was in the closet, how his family reacted when he came out of the closet, how he found his husband, their first date, their sex life. I even know where they went on their first date. They went to a minor league baseball game. And on the way back home, they knew it was love. I can't remember. They shared a beer. Oh, and somebody made a comment, right? One of those hateful people. Anyway, just bring something else to the table. And I say this as somebody who has been judged negatively and had opportunity to... No, I'm not suffering. But when you're white and you're straight, that is still a negative in huge components of America to this day. Be right back.
Amonte's Key Food, proudly serving communities throughout Brooklyn, Queens, and Long Island for over 30 years. When you shop Key Food, you'll always find fresh products, great weekly specials, and exceptional personalized service. Visit at any of their Key Food stores at 8235 153rd Avenue, Lindenwood, New York, 935 Rosedale Road, Valley Stream, New York, and 6620 Avenue U, Brooklyn, New York.
Greg Kelly
on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
This is the Greg Kelly Show.
A very pointed message. I wish he was doing this because he cared. He doesn't care. Bill Clinton. You know, he used to be, 1990s Bill Clinton is a MAGA Bill Clinton. The era of big government is over. We have to stop illegal immigration. We need a strong military. It's amazing. I kind of remember this at the time. It's one of the reasons why I didn't mind Bill Clinton when he was in office back in the 90s. Now, I was considered a raging liberal back then because I defended Bill Clinton. I made a lot of mistakes. I gave that guy way too much credit, especially on the Monica Lewinsky stuff. Remember how all the fashionable people, all the stylish people, all the smart people, all the with it, sophisticated people said, oh, that has nothing to do with his presidential duties. He's a man, and he's allowed to do what he wants to do. And yes, it doesn't matter that she's an intern, and she was an adult woman, consenting adults. I think that Bill Clinton is a fabulous president, and I am willing to. This has nothing to do, nothing. And that's where the establishment was. That's where the media was. And that's where I was. Granted, I was in the military at the time, and it didn't really matter, but it kind of did because it sent a message that, quite frankly, it did. And, my friend Barbara once said, not only like to adults, but to kids, middle school kids. I knew somebody who was a teacher, and for the first time ever, like there were reports, in middle school of what happening between students who never really thought of that yet. I know some did, but a lot didn't. And they learned some pretty nasty lessons from Bill Clinton. So his party is falling apart, going anti-Jew, going pro-communist, communist. And he puts out a curious little video featuring a nice guy named Pedro. Carlos, you got that ready? This is at the Clinton Library in Arkansas. I've never been to the library. Go ahead.
My name is Pedro Ramirez Jimenez. Today, I become a U.S. citizen.
Hello, Pedro.
Oh my gosh.
Congratulations.
I was not expecting this. My name is Pedro Ramirez Jimenez. I work as a caterer at the Clinton Presidential Center in Little Rock, Arkansas. I never thought that I was going to become an American citizen. It took me 27 years. It's a big step in my life. I was thinking I have to become an American citizen because that way I can vote, I can participate on everything or being an equal to anybody. Can I give you a hug?
Sure. Come on, let's go take a walk.
This is unbelievable.
This is going to be a special day for you. Every year I try to speak to at least one group of people who are about to become citizens. And I love doing it. I treasure it. So it's been a while since we had anybody who actually worked here at the library. Going through this process.
So he's holding on to him because he's about to fall down. And the message is Republicans don't like immigration. We love legal immigration. And Pedro, to his credit, came here legally.
Greg Kelly, entertaining and informative
on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Yay!
Bunch of 24 to 28-year-olds yelling and screaming because a radical communist just won a primary in Colorado. The 29-year-old Ethiopian American is on her way to the Congress. She just took out a 15-term Democrat incumbent. This DSA thing is real. It's on the rise. It is freaking people out. So much so that the Democrat Party is essentially saying nothing. They're going along with it. They may have no choice. If they had any integrity, they'd have something to say. We are joined now by the legendary political talent and strategist and master fashionista, if you will, Roger Stone. Roger Stone, I got to come up with a better word than fashionista. That's more feminine than masculine, but you wear great clothes and you wear them so well. And you got to go to rogerstonesuits.com because this is taking off. And it's going to be, I think you're going to be the next Ralph Lauren, Roger. I'm serious. How are you?
I'm doing great, Greg. And I agree with you about this sweeping change in the Democrat Party. It's abundantly clear that Chuck Schumer today is considered a dangerous right-winger among some elements in the Democrat Party. That's how far things have slipped. And this is very good news for the Republicans. It's not very good news for the country. I mean, I know this is also true of you. When I was growing up, both parties believed in God. Both parties were anti-communist. Both parties believed in capitalism. Both parties believed in free enterprise. Both parties believed in a strong national defense. The Democrats wanted to spend more. They wanted to tax more. Republicans wanted to spend less, tax less. But both parties were fundamentally pro-America. That is no longer the case. And we should have seen this coming when AOC defeated Congressman Joe Crowley, who was the chairman of the vaunted Queens Democrat organization when he got beat in the Democratic primary. That was kind of their first foothold victory. But now Mamdani and his allies, through the, I think, questionable legal shifting of money around between NGOs and nonprofit organizations and political parties, a lot of it, there's some formal complaints that have been filed against it, have taken control of the once great Democrat Party of Daniel Patrick Moynihan and Hugh Carey in New York. And it now demonstrates this victory in Colorado, also recent election in Washington, D.C., shows this is not limited to New York City or New York State. This is a nationwide phenomena. They are now the party of AOC and Ilhan Omar and that old windbag Bernie Sanders. That is the future of the Democrat Party. And from a Republican point of view, they're very beatable.
And it's interesting because this is the key moment for Democrats to do something about this, and they're not doing anything about it. I'm talking about the so-called mainstream Democrats. If you were going to really try to put this down, I guess now would be the time, and they're not, which shows me that they're scared and they're desperate but they're still ambitious. So they are going to accommodate these people, and this will be the new Democrat Party because I've seen no substantive pushback to this. Have you?
No, and that's because they fear their Democrat primary voters. They realize that if they stand up and speak out against this, they will merely be swept away. So Kathy Hochul is a perfect example, perhaps the most unpopular governor in the United States based on a lot of polling that I'm looking at. But she's made her accommodation with Mamdani and he with her. If she had opposed him or spoken out against him, they would have run someone against her in the gubernatorial primary in New York, and she'd be toast. And she knows it. So these people are just kind of holding on, hoping, that the bear eats them last, which is, not a way to live, to be honest.
What do you say to the analysts? And I've heard some of them try to say, well, you got to look at this in perspective. Very low turnout in the summer. And these are already deep blue districts, right? So it doesn't really affect the mainstream. I don't agree with that analysis, but would you tell us why it's wrong?
Well, how do you explain what happened in Maine then, where a radical progressive ran the sitting governor out of the race? She got out of the race because the poll numbers, and this was before the summer, the poll numbers indicated she would have been defeated. I can't think of anywhere in the country where the Democratic Socialists cannot win. You can't point to any major victory this year where mainstream what I like to call the corporate liberal Democrats, defeated someone from the progressive socialist, nay, Marxist wing. So they can continue to delude themselves that this is just an urban phenomena, exists in pockets of the country. I just don't think that's true. As it plays out, I think, by the way, it makes it more likely in the end that they nominate Kamala Harris as their candidate for 2028, because she's the one person who could conceivably keep the diminishing corporate liberal wing of the party and the radical progressive wing of the party in one tent. Because let's face it, when you get right down to it, she agrees with them.
Wow. That's fascinating. You know, one thing that would come in handy right now, integrity, and also, you know, President Trump, he gets criticized. You know, he'll call the reporter stupid to their face if he says something, if they say something stupid, and he's not afraid to get booed. I remember he got booed at the debate in February 2016. Can't remember why exactly, but I think he was coming after George W. Bush. And I say this is important because if you can take the heat from your own party, and if you can shut down little things that are stupid, you'll be ready to shut down the big things that are stupid. And Chuck Schumer and the others, they can't cope with this because that muscle isn't exercised. It's not flexed. They've never flexed it before. You know what I mean? Not in this way. They're terrified of younger, passionate people of color. I think that has something to do with it as well. And it's kind of fascinating to watch, especially a guy like Schumer, who wrote a book about anti-Semitism last year, and in this moment is just going to let this crazy mob take over. I guess they have no choice. If you were Chuck Schumer, if you were advising Chuck Schumer, let's pretend Chuck Schumer said, you know what? I can't handle this. I gotta come out and do the right thing, and I gotta save my party. What would you advise him?
I would advise him to speak out and then announce that he wasn't running again. In all honesty, he's not going to speak out because he's trying to survive, in my opinion. And he may not be able to survive a Democrat primary. But what's more important right now is standing up to this extremism, standing up to the anti-Semitism, standing up to the Marxism, because that's what it is, because they just want to redistribute the wealth of the American people. Look, Chuck has had a long and illustrious career. He's come a long way from the state assembly. Is he more interested in the country, or is he more interested in his own personal survival politically?
It kind of blows out of the water. Not that he was wrong, but Richard Nixon, I believe, famously said, you know, to get the nomination, you run far left or you run far right, and then in the general, you run right back to the middle. And there's no sign that these DSA people are going to run to the middle. This is who they are, and this is how they're going to be.
No, I agree with that. I think they believe that they can sell their vision of America, but that's also because they cloak their vision. In other words, I think many young people, particularly, who voted for Mayor Mamdani, they voted for hope and change. They voted for broad platitudes about free this and free that without any real focus on what that meant in terms of governmental control of their private lives, their personal lives, government control over everything, whether it's free food because we're going to do away with grocery stores, or whether it's free health care, or whether it's ultimately free housing. We just froze rent, which if I were a landlord, I'd be petrified. How do I keep up my properties? How do I meet all of the regulatory requirements to make a property rentable if I have no funds to do that with? So I think they believe, just as Obama sold the people a bill of goods, that they can do it again, promising us vaguely, we offer you the opposite of whatever Trump offers you, whatever that may be, without ever specifying exactly what that is.
Wow. All right. Well, good for the Republicans. You're sure about that? You're totally confident in that? I mean, that's what it looks like. But, you know, Mamdani, I heard he was going to be good for the Republicans, you know, the moment he was elected. And we haven't seen the payoff yet. Of course, we haven't seen the midterms. So just Republicans have to run against these people. And it's it's not any trickery. This is who they are now, and we just have to run on the issues, I guess. Is that right?
I think that's absolutely right. And to answer your question as to whether I'm sure, I'm absolutely sure.
All right. Well, good to know. Roger, you know that question, who are you wearing? For now on, you will be saying you're wearing Roger Stone. The RogerStoneSuits.com is, by the way, I'm almost at my fighting weight. Almost. I'm about 60% there, so I will be suiting up very, very soon. What is the key to a well-dressed man? General question, but what is the key to a man being considered well-dressed?
Always dress appropriately for that activity in which you're about to engage. You wouldn't wear workout clothes to a clothing mall. You wouldn't wear a three-piece suit to a bowling alley or to the gym. Always be dressed exactly perfectly for that activity in which you're about to engage. Greg, we're very interested in suiting you up. As soon as you get down to fighting weight, we're going to give you a nice discount on a fabulous suit or sports jacket.
Well, I can't wait. And I got my eye on a couple. One more thing on this, dress appropriately for the occasion. Almost any occasion you go to these days, people are now underdressed. I mean, there's like, you go to a wedding. You know what? I went to a wake and I couldn't believe people are wearing, sweatshirts and that kind of thing. Where is the rule of thumb now? Because it's almost considered appropriate. I mean, do you have to go to like old times? Hey, what would be considered appropriate in 1980? Maybe we have to do a little bit of that, because anything goes in this environment. And sadly, I'd like to fix it. I'd like to help fix it. I think you're right, but you know what I mean? The standard has really changed.
The problem is that there are no standards. I mean, when I see people going to church in baggy shorts and flip-flops, my mother would never accept the idea of going to church on Sunday without a jacket and tie. For my dad, for myself, I mean, that's how people dressed in church. My father was a blue-collar guy. He owned one suit. He wore it to go to church. He wore it for weddings. He wore it for funerals. The only time he wore it. But the idea of going to church and not wearing it would have been out of the question. You go to a nice restaurant, a 5-star restaurant today, and I don't get to that many of them, but when I do, I see what people are wearing, and I find it very hard to believe. But there are no standards. You have to set your own standards.
I love it. And before we say goodbye, you knew Richard Nixon so well. You still have an amazing connection with that man in many ways. Here is Joe McCarthy, who I think has been rehabilitated to a certain degree and also vindicated. Elon Musk called attention to this tweet. And if you don't follow, folks, Elon Musk on X, you really should, because it's a lot of wisdom and a lot of interesting information he's coming up with. But do me a favor, Carlos. This is Joe McCarthy. I'm not exactly sure what year, but he's laying it down. Go ahead.
One communist on the faculty of one university is one communist too many. One communist among the American advisors at Yalta was one communist too many. And even if there were only one communist in the State Department, even if there were only one communist in the State Department, that would still be one communist too many.
He sounds a little bit like Ted Cruz. I got two questions. What did Richard Nixon think of him? Because he had to deal with him quite a bit. And do you believe he has been vindicated somewhat?
I just wrote an extensive piece for Substack entitled "Joe McCarthy Was Right. His recent Democrat primaries prove it." Nixon and McCarthy had a complicated relationship. Nixon had to kind of mediate between the Eisenhower administration and McCarthy. But I think McCarthy considered him a friend and an ally. And, of course, it was Richard Nixon who exposed Alger Hiss, who was that communist in the State Department that Joe McCarthy refers to. And we know that to be a fact because when Soviet Russia fell and we had access to the KGB records, lo and behold, we found that Alger Hiss was a communist spy, and Richard Nixon was right.
So amazing. Richard Nixon. Wow. And Alger Hiss, he's got a couple of kids running around New York City. I think they're 80 now, but they also, my sense is, they lean heavily to the left. Well, Roger Stone, please, everybody, check out Roger Stone Suits. And what's coming up in store on the show next?
We're going to be talking about the very subject we hit on today, which is the Democrats' party's sharp shift to the left. That's tonight on the Stone Zone at 8 p.m. right there at 77 WABC.
We love it. Roger Stone, many thanks, and we will be right back.
The ultimate cookout starts with the ultimate ingredients. At Whole Foods Market, no antibiotics ever burgers and kebabs are prepped and ready to throw on the grill. Fire up a juicy ribeye. Grab creamy potato salad and savory flatbreads from the prepared foods department and round it all out with 365 brand condiments, chips, and dips at everyday low prices. Whole Foods Market. Make your summer sizzle.
Greg Kelly, entertaining and informative
on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
So I'm kind of curious about this boyfriend-girlfriend team who climbed the Empire State Building, unfurled a flag, some sort of, peace, love is peace and peace is love, whatever. I'm kind of just curious how they did it, kind of have an idea. They had ropes and stuff like that in their backpack, and they took the elevator legally to the observation deck, and then they the outdoor observation deck, and then they climbed the rest of the way to the very tippy top. Now, the very tippy top is not as tippy top as it used to be, because there are a lot of buildings in Manhattan that are now taller than the Empire State Building. But quite a feat. I guess I'm sure they busted him. They arrested him. It's the kind of thing you don't spend the night in jail for anymore. And maybe not that it ever was. I don't think Philippe Petit spent the night in jail. I can't remember now. He's the guy who walked the tightrope between the World Trade Center back in 1974. And you know what? Didn't get enough attention for it. You know why? Because he did it the same day Richard Nixon resigned. Although it was a big New York story, should have been an international story. It eventually got around. Okay. Got to leave here in a moment. Gail has been on the phone for a while. Thank you for coming back to us, hanging around. What's going on, Gail?
You're welcome. Hi, Greg. I really appreciate your telling people how reminding people that President Trump went into office as a billionaire, unlike the Clintons. And very little was said regarding Hillary Clinton while she was Secretary of State, taking very, very big money from China and other foreign entities for her foundation. And this is while she placed classified information on an obviously easily hacked bathroom server. You really don't hear about that. And other Congress people, there was just a report by the Washington Free Beacon that the extreme leftist Ro Khanna, the family's possibly worth over $340 million. So, you don't hear these reports in legacy media.
No, you don't. And but to be honest, and a little bit you did with Hillary and when she was in the State Department. It was primarily Fox News, though. You're right. Here's something and I want to get over, and I want my listeners and also my brethren in conservative media to get over. I don't want to worry about what the hell the legacy media are doing. You know what I mean? Like, it's a free country. If they want to be biased and unfair and all those things, I guess they can to a certain degree. I mean, they got to have a certain amount of fairness. But, I was watching, I don't want to say what show it is because I like the host, but I couldn't believe it. He led with what The View was saying, what Joy Behar was saying on The View. And it was something idiotic and wrong. But it's her right. You know what I mean? Like, I don't care. I'd rather tell our own stories. Does that make sense?
It makes total sense. Unfortunately, it seems like the conglomerate media, which I guess is legacy, seems to really encompass most of the mainstream. And I think President Trump had 90% bad coverage.
He
So
did,
that's
but
almost like
guess what? He
campaign
overcame it. He overcame it, right? So, like, we're almost pulling out our own hair when we complain about that. We got to tell our own stories and blow them off. They'll fail on their own. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to The Greg Kelly Show. You can hear The Greg Kelly Show weekdays at 12:15 on 77 WABC. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?
In this 25th anniversary year of September 11th, the Tunnel to Towers Foundation continues to honor America's heroes. Heroes like Fire Lieutenant Michael Wells, who was inspired by 9/11 to serve his community. After 14 dedicated years of service, he lost his battle with occupational cancer, leaving behind his wife, Katie, and their 3 children. Tunnel to Towers honored Lieutenant Wells by paying off the family's mortgage in recognition of his sacrifices. Donate $11 monthly and amplify your impact with a car or land donation. Go to T2T.org.